What up, B Squad? It is your boy JB, and we are here today, you guys. We got quite a few videos to get through. So the first one up on the docket is Power Book 4, right, you guys? It's 4. Force, Season 3, Episode 3. The episode titled, There's Always a Price to Pay. So before we go ahead and jump into it, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on the channel, and you're not subscribed yet, then I need you guys to do me a solid favor and stop taking me out on this date and then having me pay for it at the end of it. You guys know the routine. You can do me that favor by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, turning on your post notifications, you guys, and also by sharing the video. And with that out of the way, without further ado, you guys, let us discuss. What am I talking about again? Power Book 4 Force. Shot. All right, you guys. So you guys know how I do this. We go from people to people, right? So I think I want to start up with This was a okay episode. It wasn't like I wasn't like, oh my god, like wow. Once we got to the end of the episode, but it was a decent episode. You guys tell me what you think and feel. So I feel like what we'll do is we'll split this into two halves, right? So we'll talk about Stacy, Claudia, and Victor, and then we'll wrap it up with Tommy, Diamond, and Jannard. We didn't have any Shanti in this episode. So I'm like, okay, cool, no Shanti, but we will have Shanti in episode 4. Now I don't know if they're gonna be on next week because next week is the holiday, so we may have next Friday off. I kind of hope so, but I don't know for a fact. But we'll see nonetheless. Now let's start up with. So I guess what we'll do is we'll go from Victor down to Claudia, then to Stacy, and I think it'll work for me. Now remember in the last episode we saw Victor as he was with that girl. So her name is Ray. So we see Vic. Vic wakes up in Ray's apartment the next morning, right? So he's going through her stuff. I was like, you making yourself a little bit obvious, even though she was in the shower. But I'm like, Victor, you are making yourself obvious. So he's looking at her iPad. She has these tickets to not Broadway, but a show, right? And so then she comes out. So Victor is trying to set up a second date with her, and basically Ray is like, I thought you would be gone. He was like, no, I was gonna hang around for a little bit. I was like, dude, it was a one night stand. Why you ain't gone? So he was like, well, can I get your number? She was like, even outside of the one night stand, you're not my type. So peace out, brother, man. So he ended up leaving, right? So then we see as Vic is having a conversation with Tommy, and Tommy, he's telling Tommy like, you're giving away my bars, and that makes me look bad with my guys. And Tommy essentially is telling him like, listen here, Vic, I don't give a damn how it makes you look. The only thing that I want to hear coming out of your mouth is something telling me what I can do about that Fed bitch, Marks, right? And Vic is like, Tommy, it's really hard to get anything on her. And Tommy's like, I don't give a fuck how hard it is, Victor. You figure something out. Like, you tell me something about that bitch. Because if you're not useful for me, then when you're no longer useful for me, you're going to be done, like done, right? So that's what Tommy said. So figure it out, Vic. So then we see Victor. So Victor went to the theater, and so he saw Ray as she and her friend Alice walked down, right? And so he went up to the bar, and she looked, Jason. And so I was like, oh. And she was like, I wouldn't have paid you for a guy to come to the theater. And I was like, well, what does that mean, ma'am? Just because he got tattoos and everything? But hey, whatever. So her friend was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave you alone. So we see as Jason, excuse me, y'all. So we see as Jason and Ray are back at her apartment, and, they about to get it in. So then the next morning, he was like, so can I finally get your number? She was like, yeah. She was like, but, I got this client, and it's going to be a time with this client, and, so I can't really say what my availability is going to be. And so he was like, would that client happen to be Stacy Marks? And she was like, how did you know? He was like, politics, she's like, I thought you were a tech guy. He's like, yeah, I am a tech guy, but I also dabble in a little bit of politics, right? So she was like, yeah, it is Stacy. And he was like, and everybody saw that press conference, which we'll talk about the press conference in just a minute. But it was like, everybody saw that press conference, and yeah. And she was like, and yeah, she went from the top of the pack to the middle of the pack, and donors are pulling out. And she was like, he was like, how can I help? So like, unless you got $1 million to spare, then it ain't really much that you can do. I was like, okay. So then after that, we see as he went back to, now you guys have to correct me if I'm wrong. Ain't that Claudia's penthouse that he's staying at? I don't remember stuff from season 2 and season 1. I really don't. I'm just gonna keep it real with you guys, especially season 2, with the long break that they took between season 2 and season 3. I don't remember everything, but that is Claudia's penthouse, right? So he put Elise out of the penthouse, right? And Elise was like, Claudia said that I could stay here, and he was like, I don't give a fuck what Claudia says. You got to get the fuck out. And he got the gun drawn on her. I was like, girl, why would you argue with the motherfucker with a gun in your face? Whatever you want, nigga. Like, I'm out. Like, I ain't got shit. I'll send somebody for my stuff. So Elise eventually left, right? So then when Elise left, he called Tommy up. He's like, yo, Tommy, I got some news for you about Stacey Marks. He was like, Stacey needs Stacey needs $1 million into her campaign, and you got a lot of money, so there you go. There's your end to Stacey. And I was like, how is this gonna work, Victor? How do you plan to get $1 million of drug money into Stacey's campaign without Stacey knowing? I don't understand how that's gonna work, but hey, we shall see. Now, moving on to Claudia. So with Claudia, remember, Claudia has this, remember at the end of season 2, I do remember this part, when Claudia was on the phone and the girl came up behind her and inked her and said that's from Tommy Egan. So in this episode, the girl makes her way around to Claudia and she was like, white devil bitch. She was saying to Claudia that I'm gonna finish the job. Just you wait. I'm gonna finish the job. And so Claudia looked at her and was like, bitch, if you couldn't do it with my back turned to you, you damn sure ain't finna get it done when I'm looking you in your eyes. I was like, Claudia, you're very bold. And you ain't got nobody in here to protect you besides this butch lesbian behind you. That's all you got is that butch lesbian, but hey, whatever. Unless that butch lesbian got an army of bitches behind her, and when I say bitches, I just mean that, I don't mean that in any offensive way. But unless that lady got an army of ladies behind her, women, whatever you want, like a whole, if she got some, as long as she, if she got more butch lesbians behind her and some stud women, some studs behind her, then sure, y'all can take her out. But if y'all ain't got an army, then what you gonna do to this lady? Now, we then see Claudia as she was going back to her cell, right? So the guard stopped Claudia, and her security behind her was like, her stop, and she was like, bitch, I said get in there. And I was like, oh, she means business. So they closed the door, and she gave Claudia a phone. So Claudia dials a number. I don't know how Claudia knew what number to dial, but she dialed a number. So she called the person, and I'm assuming it's that guy that works for Ortega, because he told Claudia that Ortega knows that Claudia is working with Tommy with the Viagra triangle. So at this point, they're taking away Claudia's protection. And she's like, without my protection, I'm fucked. And they was like, I'm sorry, Miss Flynn, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. That's the point. I was like, well, Claudia, you're fucked like Chuck, right? So then we see Claudia as she's talking to Elise. So she's talking to Elise about the money from, I don't know what money she's talking about. I guess her and Elise are getting a cut from the Viagra triangle. I guess, I don't know. But either way it go, Elise got the money in an account with their IDs, right? So Claudia now has access to the money. And Claudia's like, well, with that money, that'll allow me to buy protection for myself. And I was like, okay. Again, how much money is in this fucking account? But okay, whatever, right? So then we move on. So Elise is kind of worried about she and Claudia. And Claudia was like, Elise, don't worry. I'm going to be okay. Like, we're going to be fine. I was like, you sure, Claudia? Because I don't even believe that. But hey, whatever. Now, moving to the end of the episode with Claudia. Old girl came back to find Claudia in the laundry room. So old girl was like, I told you I was going to get you, bitch. And so she was telling her, she was like, turn the machines on. And so the girls that are standing around her, they just standing. And she was like, what the fuck y'all bitches doing? And Claudia said, yeah, go ahead, turn the machines on. So they go ahead and turn the machines on. They work for Claudia now. And so they rough. So Claudia tells them to get old girl. They get them. And Claudia just ink, ink, ink. Now the job is done. That's how you get it done, bitch. And I am the white devil, bitch. I was like, okay, Claudia, one girl. But I mean, you still gotta tussle with Tommy. Tommy's still on your ass. And he's still on your ass for what you did to old girl, season 1, whose name I don't remember. Liliana. He's still on your ass for that. But then you also still gotta worry about that crazy ass Shanti. Because there's something wrong with that bitch too. But that's it for Claudia. Now we gonna move on over to Stacy. All right, you guys. So Stacy is doing this press conference where she is announcing that she is running for mayor of Chicago, right? And so she was saying something about protecting the streets of Chicago from drugs and gang violence and all that kind of stuff, right? So she said something, and then one of the reporters was like, you mentioned protecting Chicago, but how do you do that by putting more police on the street when it doesn't do anything in the first place? And Stacy was like, there are more ways that we can do things without increasing police force. I was like, I wish y'all would tell, a certain person right about now that just because you increase, ICE, police, that doesn't make your problems go away. But okay, whatever. Moving on. So then there was another reporter in the back who asked Stacy about her divorce from Bobby, right? And Stacy was looking like, fuck. So he was like, with you going through this divorce, would that impact you in any way with, being mayor? And she essentially says no. I was like, are you sure, Stacy? Because you're already an emotional basket case when when things don't go your way. If this divorce don't go your way, you're gonna be fuck. Like you're gonna be doing all that shit. But whatever. So Donna from the DNC was like, bitch, what the fuck? Why you ain't tell me this shit? Like, now you got donors pulling out and all this kind of stuff. And the only thing that you have at this point is this Ortega trial. So you better hope and pray that it goes the way that you want it to go. Now, speaking of the Ortega case, right? We see as Stacey is talking to her team. The white girl whose name I don't know, and the Asian guy, his name is Sang. I believe that's what she said. It's spelled, because I saw the closed captioning. It's spelled the Tseng, and I know that the T is silent, so I think it's Sang. I think his name is Sang, right? So they're talking, and we find out that Ortega's attorneys have filed a motion to dismiss, right? They want to basically suppress the drugs and all that kind of, the drugs and everything with the case. They want it suppressed because on the warrant that Stacy got through saying it has an incorrect address. I was like, ooh, damn. And I was wondering, like, did that shit really happen? Well, I guess it could, right? I guess it could because the warrant that I had for my arrest, it didn't have my actual address. It had my mailing address. So if they were to come to the house, if they would have went to my aunt's house, they wouldn't have found me because I don't live there. So they wouldn't have been able to execute an arrest. Huh. Interesting. Damn, maybe I shouldn't have paid that ticket. Huh. Maybe I shouldn't have paid that ticket because I could have said, bitch, I don't live there. I ain't never lived there. I don't know whose house that is. But I'm pretty sure they could dig deep into that and realize I would be lying, and that's my aunt's house. Never mind. Moving on. So, speaking of that, We then see as Sang is at a bar with Ortega's attorney, right? And we realize Sang is working for Ortega. I was like, ooh, ain't this a fine howdy do? So Sang intentionally put the wrong address on the warrant. He's also the one that leaked to the press that Stacy is going through a divorce. He don't want Stacy to get any promotion. I was like, I might like you. So the guy that worked, the other guy, I think he's an attorney. He's asking him like, what does he know about Tommy Egan? And that's where their scene ended with them. Now we can pause here. We can move on and wrap the episode up with CBI. Who? Actually, you know what? We'll pause here and move forward. All right, you guys. So I just thought about something that I wanted to do. We can talk about Miguel because even throughout this whole entire episode, I had no idea where to put Miguel. So I know how to do Miguel. Miguel didn't have that many scenes, so it won't be that long of me talking about Miguel. But we see Miguel because he invited Maria over to the crib, right? And when Maria got to the crib, there was someone there by the name of Cynthia. Now, I don't know who Cynthia is. Have we saw Cynthia before? Please let me know in the comment section because I don't remember her. But her and Cynthia and Maria are talking, right? So then Miguel walks in and Miguel has a cigar in his hand and he's smoking it. And Maria tells him like, put that cigarette out. Like, oh God, that smell is making my stomach upset. I was like, ooh, you pregnant, ain't you? Maria ain't said it yet, but Maria is pregnant. So essentially, Miguel invited Maria over to apologize to her for everything that's happened with Tommy. And I was like, Maria, if you believe this, you're a fool. So he apologized to her and she accepted his apology. I was like, did you really believe him? But hey, we'll get back to Maria in a little bit, right? Now, you guys remember at the end of last week's episode that Miguel hired a hitman to take out Tommy, right? So then we see the said hitman on a bicycle, getting ready to get on the bicycle, and Ortega's man pulled up beside him to hand him his payday for letting Ortega know that Miguel hired him to take out Tommy, right? So after that, then we see Miguel and his guys are watching. So they pull up and snatch the man, right? So then we see as Miguel got this hitman back at his spot, torturing the shit out of the man. He even went as to cut off one of his fingers and feed it to his fucking pig that he got. I said, ew. So Miguel is asking, oh boy, like, who the fuck do you work for? And he didn't want to tell him. He was like, okay. So next thing my pig is gonna be chewing on is your balls. So they went to open up the man's legs to try to snip his balls. I said, ew, that's gay. That is gay as fuck. Like, you gonna pull out a man's dick to take his balls? That is so gay. Like, why would you want to touch another man? If you straight, I mean, I get it that we're torturing him, but if you straight, the last thing you want to do is touch another nigga's balls. Chop off his hand, his feet, his something, but his balls, that's nasty. That's gay. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. That is gay. That is gay. But hey, whatever. So he eventually told him that he is working for Ortega. And so he eventually told his guy to take him out. So then we see as Ortega is still in solitary confinement, right? So he gets a phone call and it is Miguel asking him like, why the fuck do you want to take out Tommy Egan? So Ortega is saying he didn't want him to take out Tommy because he wants to do it himself. He wants Tommy to deliver to him and for him to do it, but he also wants a foothold in Chicago over CBI, right? And so Miguel's like, okay, I'll deliver Tommy to you and I can guarantee you that foothold. So he was like, so you would go against Che? And he was like, I'll go wherever the money goes. I was like, ooh, I wish somebody heard this and they could take it back to Che and Che could take you out, Miguel. But hey, so looks like Miguel and what's his name? Ortega are in business together, right? Because he also mentioned Ortega's uncle. And we'll talk about Ortega's uncle a little bit later once we get into the review. Well, we're already into the review, but once we get to Tommy them, we'll talk about it. So let's pause here and move forward. Now, the episode, it opens up with Diamond getting to the barbershop, right? So he got to the barbershop. Now, there is there's something in front of the door and there's flies around it. And he lifts it up and it is Chavo who is cut in half. So it's just well, I mean his torso. Well, it's his top half, right? It's this. All you get is his stomach, his chest, and his face. Did he have his arms? I think he did. But he ain't got no legs. He ain't got no legs, no hips, no nothing. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, how long that motherfucker been sitting there dead? Because, again, the flies were around him. But neither here nor there. So then we see as Tommy and Diamond are talking, right? So they know that this was Ortega getting back at them for what happened to Mateo, right? So at this point, they want to get to the DSD, and Diamond was like, "I can make a phone call to them, and we can set it up within an hour." But he said we got to do damage control at this point because, they were our biggest earners. And Tommy was like, "Okay, cool, I got this. I'll be back. I'll be back in an hour." So as Tommy was leaving, Diamond got a text message from King Kilo, and King Kilo was telling him like, "Hey, either you take out that little nigga D-Mac, or when I get out, me and my crew are gonna take out D-Mac." Well, look like it's gonna have to be when you and your crew get out, because we'll get to that in a minute, because that shit was funny. So after that, we see as Tommy went to go home to Maria. So they hugging and all that kind of stuff, and Maria feels his back, so she felt a gun in his waistband. And she was like, "2 guns?" He was like, "Yeah, one of them is for you." He was like, "I need you to carry this wherever you go." Like, and he says, "I only need you to come here and go to work." And he's also amping up security for her, right? So then we see as we had this meeting with Tommy, Diamond, and Izzy, right? So Izzy is part of the DSD. So Izzy's whole thing is they want revenge against Ortega for what happened to Chavo, right? Diamond is like, he's in solitary confinement. We can't get to him. But Tom is like, we got resources. We can get to him. And so then as he was leaving, Diamond just looking at Tommy like, "Dude, what the fuck you talking about?" And Tommy was like, "Calm down, Diamond. I was just telling Izzy what he wanted to hear, right?" And Diamond was like, "But you thinking of a way to get to Ortega?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "And why aren't you?" And Diamond is like, "Because I don't want CBI making any more promises that we can't fucking keep, And, Tommy was like, "Okay, I get it. But the problem with Tommy, and this is the problem that Ghost always had with Tommy doesn't think shit through before he actually does it. And so, let's be real, if this wasn't Tommy's show, I think Tommy would have been dead a long time ago. But neither here nor there. Moving on. So after that, we see as Jannard and Diamond are together, right? So they're talking and they handling the weapons. So Jannard is like, "Are we going to war?" And Diamond's like, "No, we're not going to war." But he said, but this shit with Tommy and Ortega, shit could pop off at any point, right? So he doesn't want them to end up like Chavo is, right? So he was like, we got to make this shit work with the RDs and Chavo. Not Chavo, but King Kilo. So with that, we got to take out, we have to take D-Mac out. Once again, Jannard is hemming and hawing about taking out D-Mac. I was like, "Diamond, do you not see that your brother is not on the up and up when it comes to this?" Like, I don't know what Diamond is seeing or isn't seeing when it comes to Jannard. But because Jannard keeps like, "Oh, but we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do." It's like, Diamond, you not going to question him? Like, not even a teensy, winksy, incy little bit? But okay, it is what it is, right? It is what the hell it is. So then after that, We see as Diamond and Tommy are having a meeting with this guy named Pablo, who is from the United Kings, right? So Pablo is coming to tell them like, "Yo, we out of this shit, right? Like we ain't fucking with y'all no more." And so Tommy was like, "Well, if you don't fuck with us, you don't get our protection, our money, our product, none of that shit." He was like, "You know what? It was a unanimous vote, and we still out." So then we see as Jannard and Diamond are talking once again. So they're coming up with this plan for DMAC. So Diamond wants for DMAC to hit this crew called the 9-7s, right? And the 9-7s also have police protection. But Jannard is kind of worried about this because he's like, them niggas are crazy, like crazy, crazy, like crazy, crazy. And Diamond was like, it can work. I was like, how? So basically, what it is, Diamond doesn't want them to know that CBI is anywhere near involved with this. I was like, but that's kind of hard with somebody like a DMAC. This is like, y'all dealt with DMAC. Y'all know how topsy turvy DMAC is. DMAC don't follow nobody's plan, not even his own fucking plan. But okay, I was like, this is going back the fuck fire. So then we see as Jannard is having a conversation with D-Mac about hitting the 9-7s. Marshall is there. Marshall is like, nigga, fuck no. He said, boy, fuck that. Like, that is a death wish. And Jannard's like, nigga, I want to fucking talk to your scary ass. And I was like, D-Mac, if Marshall is afraid, then you might want to listen. But then when you think about it, it's D-Mac, and D-Mac ain't going to listen to nobody's reason. He's just going to do whatever the fuck D-Mac wants to do, which is so stupid and dumb at times. But hey, it is what it is. So we move on from there, right? So we see as Tommy and Diamond are looking at the map of what they have and what they don't have, especially with the United Kings leaving, and then there's another group that's threatening to leave as well, right? So Tommy was like, well, why don't we go talk to the Serbs? And Diamond looked at him like, are you fucking serious? The Serbs? And I was like, exactly. The Serbs, Tommy? So Tommy wants to go along with no gun. I said, huh? You know what, Tommy? You do what you want to do. At this point, go ahead, nigga. So then we see as Leon's mama came. And I was wondering why because they showed previously on Force. So they showed Leon, his mama, and his daddy. And I was like, what the fuck they showing Leon for? Gianna ended shit. That's her name, baby. I couldn't remember that woman's name for nothing. Gianna ended things with Diamond last season, right? So Gianna shows up to the shop, because I actually have her in my notes as Leon's mama. But Gianna showed up to the shop, right? And Gianna was like, Jamal is missing. Now, I'm not saying that you had anything to do with that, but thank you. And she says, thank you for, being so kind to Leon, right? And then, she wants to get it in with Diamond. Diamond says, as much as I want to, I gotta say no, because you were right about me. No, Diamond, she wasn't right about you. She was pissed. Well, was she right about you? Because, you did take out your PO. Maybe, who knows, right? Moving on. So then we see as Tommy went to go see the Serbs, right? When Tommy walked into that, they got guns drawn on Tommy. I said, Tommy, you a fool. But they worked with Tommy. They listened to Tommy, and so Tommy mentioned their mutual enemy in Ortega. Whoever the new boss is, he was like, I know an easy way to get to Ortega. He said his uncle, who he is close to, is here in Chicago. So Uncle Luis. So we see as they went to go find Uncle Luis. They got guns drawn on Uncle Luis. And he was like, y'all better take me out or it's going to be hell to pay tomorrow. They took him out, but not the way that I was expecting. Because, they had two guns at his head. I was like, so who going to pop him? Shit, Tommy said, neither one of them. Let's take this motherfucker and dangle him and throw him out the window. I said, why? And they literally threw that man out the window. I said, fuck. Ugh, Jesus. So then, you guys, we see as D-Mac is orchestrating this plan to rob the 9-7s. So Marshall went and got a merry band of crack fools. One of them is cheesing Another one is called Nutty Bar or something like that. I was like, this shit right here is gonna exponentially fail. So we get to the hit. So Marshall is still kind of apprehensive about the situation, right? D-Mac is gung ho. This nigga even got a hand grenade. I was like, where the fuck you get a hand grenade from? Why do you have a hand grenade? Moving on. So he has a hand grenade, right? In case shit goes bad. And I'm like, well, with you, shit is gonna go bad. So unfortunately, you probably gonna have to pull out that hand grenade, huh? So they get to robbing these niggas. But before that, they got one of the dudes who is part of the 9-7's got an anonymous text that some hitters was coming after them. So they tried to get out of there, but they weren't able to because these little stupid fools hit them. I was like, oh God. So a shootout incurs, right? The little Nutty Bar boy, he got popped. I was like, wait a minute. And they actually, well, I mean, there wasn't much they could do. So when the shit went to hell, D-Mac pulled that hand grenade, pop, tossed it. He blew up a car. He blew up the car. The other two 9-7 niggas got away. I think they only got one dude in the whole process. Okay. But they were able to get away with the money. They were able to get away with the money. So then we see as Diamond and Jernard were talking this shit. This was the funniest fucking scene of the episode. Diamond and Jernard are talking about D-Mac, right? And Diamond believes that D-Mac might be dead because they ain't heard shit, right? And Jernard's like, I ain't gonna say that he dead because we ain't heard nothing. So then you hear, what up D, what up J? And so that nigga comes in with the money. And Jernard, he's smoking up blood. He starts choking. And D-Mac like, why y'all niggas looking at me like that? Because nigga, they thought you were dead. They wanted you to be dead. But you ain't dead. So they fucked. So now they gotta tell this nigga, welcome back to CBI. And Tommy over here is like, what the fuck you mean, welcome back to CBI? And that's the end of the episode, you guys. Damn, I think this is the first episode this season that I've done 30 minutes of a review for Force, especially for Force. But yeah, you guys, that's it. Let me know what you guys thought about the episode down in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, you guys. Turn on your post notifications and share the video. And until the next time, stay safe. Take care of yourselves, you guys. Wash your hands, be blessed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.